Curtis Lind, an 82-year-old landlord and longtime resident of Vallejo, California, found himself at the heart of a convoluted and increasingly violent saga involving a little-known but deeply radicalized fringe group known as the Zizians. What began as an unsettling assault in 2022 would escalate into a tale of vengeance, extremist ideology, and a tragic murder that shook the quiet community to its core. Lind's brutal killing in January 2025 not only left family, friends, and neighbors reeling, but also pulled back the curtain on a sinister network of violent plots, each seemingly more twisted than the last. As investigators delved deeper into the circumstances surrounding his death, they began to uncover a web of conspiracy and fanaticism that extended far beyond Vallejo city limits, linking Lind's murder to a series of violent events and the dangerous undercurrents of extremist beliefs perpetuated by the Zizians. On a rainy afternoon on November 15, 2022, Curtis Lind, ever the diligent landlord, responded to what seemed like a routine maintenance request at one of his rental properties. The reported issue was a water leak, something Lind had dealt with countless times during his decades in property management. However, nothing about this day would be ordinary. As he approached the entrance, he was ambushed by multiple assailants who attacked him with brutal and unrelenting force. The assault left him with life-altering injuries, including a traumatic head wound and a devastating stab through his right eye, resulting in permanent blindness. Despite his critical injuries and the shock of the surprise attack, Lind's resilience shone through. He managed to draw his firearm and shoot one of his attackers, 31-year-old Emma Bohanian, killing her on the spot. He also wounded another assailant before they fled the scene. The investigation into Bohanian's background revealed her deep entanglement with the Zizians. She had previously garnered attention in law enforcement circles for her involvement in reporting the supposed drowning of the group's enigmatic leader Jack Ziz Lasota. In 2022, a mysterious event still shrouded in unanswered questions. As the case unfolded, authorities arrested Suri Dow and Alexander Jeffrey Leatham, who were charged with murder, attempted murder, and aggravated mayhem. Given his first-hand experience and critical role in identifying the attackers, Lind's testimony was anticipated to be a cornerstone of the prosecution's strategy in the trial against Dow and Leatham, which was slated to begin in April 2025. His death would therefore deliver a significant blow to the pursuit of justice. On the cold morning of January 17, 2025, the peaceful facade of Lind's gated property was shattered when his body was discovered just outside the iron wrought gates that had offered him a false sense of security. He had been stabbed multiple times, and investigators immediately drew a connection between his murder and his pending court appearance. The timing, mere months before the critical trial where Lind was set to be a key witness, stirred immediate suspicions of witness tampering. It wasn't long before authorities zeroed in on a suspect: 22-year-old data scientist Maximilian Bentley Snyder. Snyder, who had long-standing ties to the Zizians, was promptly arrested and charged with Lind's murder. Prosecutors wasted no time in building a narrative that Snyder's actions were not isolated but rather part of a broader, calculated strategy by the Zizians to silence those who posed a threat to their operations and to the freedom of their members. As investigators dug deeper into Snyder's personal life, more disturbing details emerged. Not only did he have well-documented connections to the Zizians, but he had also recently taken a significant step to formalize his bond with the group. Just weeks before Lind's murder, Snyder had applied for a marriage license with Teresa Milo Youngblood, a figure well known to law enforcement and the media. Youngblood's notoriety stemmed from her alleged involvement in the killing of U.S. Border Patrol agent David Malland in Vermont, a case that had already drawn national attention and painted a grim picture of the Zizians' growing influence and capacity for violence. Snyder's planned union with Youngblood only reinforced prosecutors' claims that his allegiance to the Zizians was deep-rooted and that Lind's murder was a premeditated act of loyalty to the extremist cause. As the community mourned Lind's loss, the stage was set for a highly charged legal battle that would not only seek justice for Lind, but also aim to dismantle the dangerous network of the Zizians once and for all. The Zizians, under the leadership of Jack Ziz Lasota, are a fringe group advocating extreme ideologies, including transhumanism and radical animal rights activism. The group has been linked to several violent incidents across the United States, sparking widespread concern among both law enforcement and the general public. The Zizians' ideology is a complex blend of futurism and rebellion against societal norms. Transhumanism, at its core, involves the belief in enhancing human capabilities through technology and genetic modification, aiming to transcend the natural limitations of the human body and mind. However, the Zizians' interpretation of this philosophy veered into dangerous territory, promoting an aggressive stance against those they viewed as obstacles to progress. Their radical animal rights activism further complicated their narrative, often justifying violent means to achieve what they saw as liberation for non-human creatures. This fusion of extreme beliefs created a volatile mix that attracted a small but fervent following, primarily through underground forums and encrypted communication channels. Additionally, members of the group were involved in the fatal shooting of Border Patrol agent Malland in Vermont. This incident marked a significant escalation in the Zizians' operations, as it demonstrated a willingness to confront federal authorities directly. Agent Malland had been conducting a routine patrol when he encountered a suspicious vehicle linked to the group. The ensuing confrontation quickly turned deadly, highlighting the dangerous lengths to which the Zizians were willing to go to avoid detection. Authorities believed the group was attempting to smuggle materials related to their clandestine experiments, possibly involving illegal bioengineering or weapons development. The group's activities often centered around their extremist beliefs, which included the rejection of traditional societal norms and the embrace of a post-human future. Their vision of a world where technology redefined humanity was not merely theoretical. Members reportedly engaged in unregulated genetic experiments and clandestine medical procedures, some of which may have involved unwilling participants. The Zizians' underground labs, discovered during subsequent raids, were filled with equipment and documents suggesting experiments that pushed ethical and legal boundaries. Former members who turned informants described an insular culture within the group where dissent was met with harsh punishment and loyalty to Lasota was paramount. In February 2025, Lasota, along with associates Michelle Zadko and Daniel Blank, was arrested in Maryland on charges including trespassing, obstruction, and firearms violations. The arrest was not merely a matter of routine law enforcement, but rather a carefully coordinated operation involving federal, state, and local agencies. Investigators had been building a case against the Zizians for months, piecing together clues from seemingly unrelated crimes. The trio was discovered trespassing on private property suspected to be a front for their operations. When confronted, they attempted to flee, leading to a brief but intense standoff. The seizure of weapons, documents, and digital evidence provided authorities with invaluable insights into the group's plans and connections. The arrest marked a significant breakthrough in law enforcement's efforts to dismantle the group's operations. However, officials cautioned that many members remained at large, potentially posing a continued threat. The Zizians had proven adept at maintaining secrecy, utilizing encrypted communications and operating in isolated locations. Law enforcement emphasized the need for public vigilance and encouraged communities to report suspicious activities. The arrest also prompted renewed discussions about the legal challenges associated with prosecuting extremist groups, particularly those whose ideologies blur the lines between political, social, and scientific realms. The murder of Curtis Lind highlighted the dangerous influence of extremist groups and their willingness to engage in violent acts to silence witnesses.
The trial date, we're looking forward to it. When the dust settles, when everything is over and said and done with, all the evidence is in, everybody's going to see that defendant Dow is not overly involved in any of this.
Lind, a former member turned whistleblower, had been preparing to testify against the Zizians in an upcoming trial. His death, which bore signs of a targeted attack, underscored the group's reach and the dangers faced by those who challenged them. Friends and family described Lind as a brave but anxious man who had confided in them about the threats he had received. His murder raised difficult questions about the effectiveness of witness protection programs, and whether authorities had underestimated the lengths to which the Zizians would go to protect their secrets. The broader implications of this case have raised concerns about the effectiveness of witness protection programs and the challenges posed by radical ideologies in modern society. Legal experts pointed out that groups like the Zizians often exploit legal loopholes, presenting themselves as harmless advocacy organizations.
With a suspect named Teresa Youngblood. She's a 21-year-old, also from the same area of Washington, charged in the fatal shooting death of a Border Patrol agent in Vermont last week. The connection there is that they had applied for a marriage license together in November in Washington.
While conducting illegal activities behind the scenes, the trial of Lazata, Zatko and Blank is expected to draw national attention, not only for the crimes themselves, but also for what it may reveal about the group's operations and the broader threat of extremist fringe groups. Authorities continue to investigate the Zizians network, aiming to prevent further violence and hold accountable those responsible for their crimes. Task forces have been established to track down remaining members and uncover the full extent of their activities. The investigation has expanded internationally as evidence suggests that the Zizians may have connections to like-minded groups in Europe, and security experts warn that the group's digital footprint indicates ongoing recruitment efforts, potentially drawing in disaffected individuals attracted to the promise of a new era of human evolution. The upcoming trial of Snyder and others involved in Lynn's attack may reveal more about the Zizians' motives and influence. Prosecutors will present evidence of both physical crimes and the group's use of psychological manipulation and propaganda to control followers. The Curtis Lind case highlights the dangers faced by witnesses and the threat of extremist groups, as the community hopes for justice and an end to the violence.